My mom kicked me out because I told on my stepdad for stealing. Then she asked me to help fix for marriage, but I moved far away to live with my dad instead. Now she's saying she doesn't want me anymore. Before I get into what happened, let me tell you a bit about myself. I'm 17 years old, recently celebrated my birthday, and just graduated from high school with straight A's. I've been living with my 38-year-old mom for almost 2 years now. She's a single mom and works as the head chef at a top Italian restaurant in our city. My parents divorced when I was 10 and they used to share custody of me. However, my dad got sick with brain cancer, so I had to move in with my mom full-time. I used to split my time between them, but now I mainly live with my mom. I still visit my dad often, but I've always been closer to him than my mom. We didn't always get along because my mom and I clashed a lot, especially after the divorce. But she has her good moments too, so I've learned to accept living with her, especially after my dad got sick. My relationship with my mom has been strained lately, mainly because of her new husband, Mark. They got married just 8 months ago, and I only found out about their relationship when he proposed. Their significant age gap, combined with my dad's recent diagnosis, made it tough for me to accept. But I had no choice but to go along with it once they decided to get married. I never trusted Mark. Something about his overly sweet demeanor felt fake to me. I didn't want to upset my mom by expressing my doubts, so I kept quiet. However, my suspicions were confirmed 3 months after the wedding. Mark moved in with us, and although he barely spoke to me when we were alone, he acted all friendly and charming when my mom was around. It was obvious to me that his behavior was insincere. One day while I was in the kitchen, I heard a strange noise coming from my mom's bedroom. I discovered that my mom had a secret locker under her bed known only to us, with keys that she always kept with her. I had a spare set of keys, but I hadn't given them to Mark. It dawned on me that he must have taken my mom's keys. Inside the locker were my mom's wedding jewelry from her marriage to my dad, along with other valuable pieces and some emergency cash. My mom preferred to keep these items close rather than in a bank locker, believing it was safer. I watched in shock as Mark took a bundle of cash from the locker and put it in his pocket. I was frozen in place when he noticed me outside the bedroom. He seemed annoyed for a moment, then put on a smile, walked over, and draped his arm around my shoulder, guiding me to the living room couch. There he explained that my mom had asked him to fetch cash for a work emergency, and that's why he had taken the money. He assured me it was all perfectly normal. I wanted to talk to my mom about what I saw, but when I brought it up, she shut me down immediately. She seemed to think I was going to criticize Mark or try to push her back to my dad, which wasn't my intention at all. I was relieved when my parents split up because their constant fighting was tough on me. But my mom wouldn't listen. She threatened to punish me if I spoke against Mark. That made me angry, so I decided to let her figure it out on her own. If she wanted to ignore the truth and stick with Mark, that was her choice. I didn't bring it up again and waited for her to realize the truth herself. Unfortunately, she never did. Months went by and I found myself growing more distant from my mother as she became increasingly obsessed with Mark. It was unsettling to see her so fixated on him, especially considering it was Mark of all people. Then about a week ago, my mom sat me down for what she called a very important conversation. It was just the two of us since Mark was out with his friends. At first, I worried it was bad news about my dad, but she quickly veered off into irrelevant topics. Frustrated, I urged her to get to the point. That's when she dropped the bombshell. She wanted me to leave the house because Mark claimed he didn't feel comfortable around me and said I made him feel unsafe and unwanted. I knew my mom had strong feelings for Mark, but I never expected her to go this far. It seemed absurd to kick out your own daughter because your husband felt insecure for no real reason. I understood that Mark was afraid I'd tell my mom about the locker incident and expose his true colors, but he had nothing to fear. My mom had already made it clear she didn't want to hear anything negative about him. I was so fed up with my mom that I didn't bother arguing. I just agreed and started packing. As I packed, I felt a surge of anger and briefly entertained the idea of confronting Mark when he got home. But then I found my mom's spare keys to the locker and came up with a different plan. Sneaking into her room, I had an idea. While my mom was engrossed in TV, I quietly took her bag and removed the keys. Leaving a note in her purse, I hinted that she should talk to Mark if she wanted to find her keys. I wanted to ensure he didn't escape consequences. Once I finished packing my essentials, I went to say goodbye. My mom seemed surprised that I was leaving so suddenly, but she recovered quickly and hugged me goodbye. Strangely, she showed no sadness or concern about my departure. It was clear this situation didn't bother her at all. I left and caught a bus to my dad's house, which was about 2,000 miles away in the suburbs. I used to live with my mom because my dad was undergoing treatment and needed care from his brother. When I visited him, I kept our conversations light to ease his worries. I missed him dearly but didn't share anything about Mark or my mom's situation with him. Whenever my dad asked about life at home and how my mom and her new husband treated me, I used to lie and say everything was fine. but now I couldn't keep up the facade. It was crucial for him to know the truth. So I opened up and told him everything that had happened, including the events of that day. My dad was so furious that his ears turned red, which was a first for me to see. I worried about his health, but he managed to keep his composure. I also explained how I took the keys and left the note to ensure my mom discovered Mark's actions. This seemed to ease my dad's anger, and he praised me for my actions. Both my dad and my uncle assured me that they were okay with taking care of me and told me not to worry about anything. The only reason they allowed me to move in with my mom full-time was for my convenience, but they were more than willing to take me back if I wanted. I was much happier with my dad and uncle, so I didn't mind my mom sending me away initially. However, neither my mom nor my dad reached out to me afterward. The next day, my mom sent a video of Mark crying and apologizing for his actions. She claimed it was proof of his remorse and that she had kicked him out because of it. My plan had worked. Mark confessed after she found the missing keys and note. While it was satisfying to see him in tears, my mom's text saying she'd only forgive him if I returned was exasperating. I had no intention of going back to a place where I felt invisible or like a burden. It was absurd for my mom to leave the decision to me. She should have been the one to end the marriage. If Mark was in the wrong, then so was my mom, and perhaps even more so because she was my mother. Kicking me out for another man was unforgivable. It wasn't just Mark who owed me an apology. She should have been remorseful for what she put me through. Instead, she seemed to treat it like a game. I couldn't understand why she left the fate of her marriage up to me, but since she did, I made it clear I wasn't coming back. In response, she sent another video, this time with a calmer but still upset Mark, pleading for another chance to prove his love. It tugged at my heartstrings, but I stood firm. My decision was final. My mom accused me of being too harsh, claiming they were putting their happiness and marriage on the line for me. But I couldn't bring myself to care. I ignored her messages, but she persisted, sending daily texts and videos apologizing for their treatment of me. In the videos, my mom keeps repeating that unless I return, she'll file for divorce to prove she's serious. Yesterday, she even claimed to have spoken to a lawyer and sent texts as proof. Mark appeared upset in the video, begging for forgiveness, saying he couldn't bear to lose my mom. I feel like my mom's actions are sickening. She's not only tormenting her husband but also putting me through unnecessary stress. I don't believe it's my place to decide the fate of their marriage. My mom shouldn't burden me with such a responsibility, making it seem like their marriage's end is my fault. I haven't told my dad because I don't want to worry him knowing he'd intervene. It's a difficult situation, and I feel trapped, torn between my mom's demands and my own principles. Mark may not be perfect, but he doesn't deserve to be treated this way just because my mom has more money. I'm stuck, unsure of what to do, feeling guilty for refusing to be the arbiter of my mom's marriage. Update 1. Hey everyone, I've been reading the comments on my original post, and it seems like the consensus is that I should talk to my dad about what I'm going through instead of trying to handle it all on my own. I guess it's true. I tend to keep things to myself instead of asking for help when I need it. I feel guilty about burdening my dad because he already has so much on his plate, especially being a cancer patient. But I realized that if I had talked to him sooner, maybe I wouldn't have had to go through all of this. So I finally opened up to my dad about everything with my mom and her manipulative behavior. He didn't hesitate to call her out on it and made it clear that he would be seeking full custody and ensuring she doesn't get to see me again after this. She put up a fight, but both my dad and I knew her protests were more about her own image than genuine concern for me. She was more worried about what others would think when they learned she lost custody of her daughter because she prioritized her husband over me. It was clear she didn't care for me the way a mother should. After the call with my mom, my dad reiterated what people in the comments had said. He assured me that I was his daughter and I could always turn to him with any problem. He reminded me that my well-being was his priority and his illness wouldn't stop him from being there for me. I couldn't help but tear up at his words, realizing that despite his illness, he was still my strong dad at heart. It was a powerful moment because after everything with my mom and Mark, I finally felt safe and loved again. It was a feeling I had forgotten amidst the chaos. But my dad reassured me once again that no illness would ever stop him from looking out for me, and I'm forever thankful for that. It might sound cheesy, but it means the world to me. Update 2. My dad has officially filed for full custody, and my mom won't have any visitation rights. It doesn't bother me much since I'll be legally an adult in just a year anyway. My dad explained that he no longer trusts my mom, especially with Mark in the picture. Recently, my mom texted me expressing her disappointment in me for involving my dad, despite knowing he's ill. She called me selfish and manipulative, accusing me of trying to sabotage her relationship with Mark. She claimed they were stronger than ever and didn't need me. She said some other hurtful things, but I've learned not to let her words affect me anymore. But it won't change the fact that she's the one who failed as a mother, and her defensive stance now only confirms it. My maternal grandparents threatened to cut her off, but she's so infatuated with Mark that she doesn't even care. I don't even know what to say about her anymore. I've had disagreements with my mother in the past, but this is beyond comprehension. She's beyond help in my opinion. My grandparents tried to intervene, but even they couldn't bring her back to her senses. My dad has been gracious enough to allow her parents to continue seeing me, as they've done nothing wrong. I wish my mom had learned from their example of maintaining a good relationship post-divorce. Update 3. Today was bittersweet. My mother finally terminated her parental rights over me, freeing me legally from her grasp. I went with my dad to witness the signing and saw her for what may be the last time in a while. She didn't acknowledge me, and it left me with mixed emotions. Mark wasn't there, which was no surprise. His presence is inconsequential to me now. My dad and uncle took me out for dinner to lift my spirits. 2 days ago, we received good news that my dad's health is improving. There's hope he'll beat cancer. Please keep him in your prayers. He's my only parent now, and I can't bear to lose him. Thank you to everyone who responded and offered support.